Right. Think I'm on. I was hoping that I would get this to stream to Instagram as well, but that seems unlikely to happen. Yeah, Ivan here. Today I want to speak about something a bit spicy. And I was sharing with you on my Facebook page earlier about this topic of how there is a culture in the personal development industry of leveraging trauma instead of healing it, and of building a whole business on a foundation of spiritualized trauma. And I think we all do it to some extent. I know that I have. Uh, Obviously, it wasn't the intention. It wasn't there was no awareness, no clarity around how that was going on. And fortunately, in my particular case, it wasn't particularly egregious. So I'll I'll just share. I'll just expose myself here a little bit first. So I don't plan on naming names because I don't feel like that's my business, at least not today. But certainly, there's a lot of names that I could mention, and one of the gifts that I have been given and that I have been sharing as well through my trainings over, I don't know, more than a decade, is a depth of seeing and of seeing patterns uh, of behavior and where our actions and words are coming from. And it's not always comfortable, especially not when it's directed towards myself. So one of the things that has been, I think a lot of you who are blessed with similar gifts, and there's many of you who are, there is a sense of really wanting to be as pure as you can in the process, and you can start to hold yourself back because maybe you're afraid that you're going to be taken by these potential rivers of corruption that flow through every human being. And this has been something that has been a mainstay of my inner work for, I don't know, 2 decades. This dance with like not wanting to be taken by the tide of corruption that is always there. And I've held back at times because of that, because I know that that seed lives in all of us. And still, it's impossible. The feature of this human realm is that it's intrinsically imperfect, and there's no way for any of us to show up as entirely pure as much as you may want to. And in terms of my particular battle with this, it's like through the, the particular parameters of my childhood, the thing that I became most scared of, and I think this is very common, was of being abandoned, for being different, for saying too much, seeing too much. And so in my particular line of business, the way that it showed up for me, that I would spiritualize my trauma instead of just owning it fully, was that I would really challenge men to commit deeply, 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 deeply to their work, running especially Reclaim Me in a Throne for almost a decade. And it was one of the very beautiful things of the training that I ran back then. Men really committed deeply. They committed very deeply. But there was a disharmony somewhere there, that the reason they committed so deeply was, to some extent, this is not obviously all of it, but to some extent, because there was a little live inside of me that was afraid of being abandoned. And so if somebody would leave a training or not enter a training, that felt personal for some very tender part inside of me. What I could have done, but I didn't do, but what I could have done was to build a whole fucking horde of worshipping, adoring followers and clients around me. And the more of those I had, the less reason I would have to be worried that my abandonment trauma would be triggered. And it's rather obvious how that could happen because, oh, there's one person that is getting angry with me, but I have like 1,000 more who still love me. And this is basically at the core of how cults function. Because there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of vital force in a trauma. Because wherever the wound happened initially, you don't want to return to that place. In this case, my feeling of being abandoned, which wasn't even abandoned like as a child, but there were times when I wasn't loved in the way that I needed to be right then and there. And all parents are imperfect. And so there's a particular patterning there for me, right? And then there can be so much energy available from this little child that doesn't want to feel abandoned again. And so you can build a whole business with the singular intention of ensuring that your childhood trauma doesn't get triggered again. And the truth is, I believe this is the truth. I have no scientific process behind this, but I've seen it far too many times to think that it's rare. I think the truth is that the vast majority of people operating in the personal development space run their business for this very reason. That I want to have a horde of people around me that ensure that I don't have to heal my trauma because I'm shit scared to go there. I would encourage any one of you who has questions along the way here to just share them. I'm happy to address them towards the end. I think I'll go probably for like half an hour or so. So if you are somebody who is in the infancy of running some sort of coaching business or especially some sort of spiritual business, you're in the personal development field, the new age, you have discovered meditation, plant medicine, ayahuasca, it feels kind of special. This is the territory where these things have the greatest tendency of playing out in my experience and perception. And so one of the greatest functions that this serves, to have all of these people around you, is that you get to utilize other people as an extension of your own nervous system. Because the truth is that the presence of trauma in our psyche is intrinsically destabilizing. And when somebody comes close to the place where the trauma lives, I enter a place of dysregulation. And if I stand alone in this place, it's a one-to-one situation or a many-to-one situation, my capacity to hold my nervous system is going to be diminished, or it's going to be less. There's just me, and it feels like the world is coming towards me, and it's kind of intense. But if I have 1,000 people on my side and one person is coming towards me, it's a lot easier. And so that's the sense that when you have followers, you have people that have been inside of your trainings, your businesses, or your memberships, this kind of a thing, you feel like you have this kind of, you have your people. but you don't actually. They are your clients, past, present, or future, right? They're not your people. But the tendency is to see them as that. And when somebody among your people starts to express displeasure with the way you're holding a field, with the way that you're sharing your teaching, with the way that you're showing up as a human, as a teacher, then now you have enough backing by these 1,000 people that you can demonize this person and use them as a teaching. You can tell everyone that is still adoring you that, oh, this person is so unconscious. And there will be a temptation to do that, because when you have that kind of following, you can actually take advantage of that in order to not face the tender part inside. Like, just please say to yourself, I know what you're talking about. Heck yeah, you're familiar with this. The tendency, inclination, temptation to do it in yourself, but also the way that you've seen this in other people, leaders that you've been with, so on and so forth. Because it happens everywhere. It's super common. Other people, when you have good friends, people who love you, they become, in a positive way, an extension of my nervous system. My family is an extension of my nervous system. The fact that I have a family where there's tremendous love and mutual respect and support, harmony. It's like our home is incredible. And so, of course, that allows me to find peace. That allows me to ground more. So there's a way that this is supposed to work, that people become grounding rods for the places where I feel stressed, right? So this is the way that we shouldn't use our customers. This is the way we shouldn't use people who follow us. But the greater the sense of vulnerability and lost innocence is on the inside, maybe my trauma, if my trauma was really intense, the inclination to do this could increase, to do this with clients. Because there may be really a lot of dysregulation, just very small little things inside of the business, inside of life, actually, could be destabilizing. And then there is this huge delta, this huge unbridged chasm between the projected image of the sort of the great teacher of this body of work, and then the truth of being a person that is being triggered into a very young, innocent place very, very often. That's a heck of an acrobatic, what's it called? That you have to do the splits really well. On the one hand, I feel like 2 years old, and on the other hand, I'm like going to be the big guru in front of the room. Look at me, I'm the authority. This is probably what is happening in the case of almost all gurus. There's a reason why eventually they are exposed for the kind of abuse that happened, and a lot of the time this is suppressed for a long time. Then eventually there is one person that dares to speak out, and then there's a tidal wave. And I think it's become a challenging period to find a healthy way with sharing these kinds of gifts, because there is such a desire among people to lose themselves to a perfect leader. There is such little interest in being responsible for my own life. And this is, of course, in large part because of a certain turn towards a more progressive victim culture. Wokeism has had a huge role to play in this, that it's never my fault. And so, actually, this victimhood culture, strangely, but true, needs these strong leaders that we can totally lose ourselves to, until we inevitably have to blame them for the kind of oppression and abuse that we are victims of. And a lot of the time it's true. um, though frankly, it is as much on the follower, the worshiper, the customer, as it is on the guru, because the patterns that run in both of these are very young. And so just because one is a leader and one is a follower doesn't mean that the leader is responsible for everything, because it's just a different expression of the trauma a lot of the time. I want to touch on the way we talked about this in Reclaiming Your Throne back in the days, because there is a strange and dark, and it's a creepy connection between the loss of innocence and the demonic realm. And you've probably seen how this is real in how it has been fully leveraged in horror. And of course, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but it's also leveraged in very dark subsections of our culture, where preying on innocence is part of the culture. But we can end up doing this ourselves as well, preying on our own innocence. And that's when we can enter into demonic contracts. And so this was a huge theme inside of Reclaiming Your Throne. I would say that it was one of the most, if not the most, fundamental teaching of the underworld crossing in that training. 3 months was an intense program that I stopped running a few years back. The understanding that at some point, I split off a part of ourselves that was hurting so bad that we didn't want to feel identified with it. This is, of course, triggered by trauma. And so this innocent part of us goes into hiding. Or I think it may be more accurate to say that we send him or her into exile. And the way we do that is whenever we feel that young, desperate feeling, we harden inside. And we start self-harm in some way, or we start posturing. Because our ego does not have the capacity to go into that much vulnerability in that moment. And that tends to be a recurring cycle that for a lot of people never resolves because the pain is too big. But we still have ambitions. We still want to do things. We still want to build businesses, build families. And so unconsciously, for the most part, consciously sometimes, we enter into demonic contracts where I think the best way to talk about it is that this demon, this entity, will give you access to special powers, will give you access to adoring followers and fans, as long as it gets access to your innocence. And so whenever somebody comes close to your innocence, if you're running a business and you haven't resolved this pattern in yourself, that's when the temptation may come up. And especially if there is a demonic contract, it's not just a temptation, it's a possession. And so you will feel yourself, or you will observe in others, that there is a complete personality shift towards obsession. And so the person which has a demon that is powering their business now has a demon that is fighting to keep hold of the innocence, because you're not going to find him. You're not going to find it. It cannot be exposed because it's a power source that is being fed upon by the entity. So, and this is pretty morbid, but it's true. These are the occult contracts that some people enter into. So, I think it behooves us to, I see there are some questions here. Drama triangle is certainly a part of it, right? Absolutely. Absolutely. But there's a deeper cut. We've had a tendency to psychologize everything because we think that we're so sophisticated with our science these days, right? And so we have lost access to the spiritual wisdom that people have had for millennia prior to this moment that we find ourselves in. And the truth is that so many of the things that we have domesticated with psychological language are actually spiritual afflictions. And if we don't treat them as spiritual afflictions, they can never be healed, which is very convenient for the pharmaceutical industry that makes a lot of money on these psychological afflictions, and to a large extent also contributes to creating them. So I think that's probably what you're intuiting here, Ryan. That there seems to be another level, and that is the spiritual. That there is a etheric layer, like the auric layer, where there are beings that live, right? So, but yeah, I want to speak a little bit about this. I hope this is striking home with you guys. I know this is intense, and I know it's going to be quite exposing for some of you, because I may actually speak about the way you run your business right now. You're like, shit, this is horrible. And then the demon may come out, and if it does, you probably don't like me very much right now, and I can empathize with that, because this is part and parcel of the process. There are all of these defensive perimeters that are designed for you not to heal. So whether you're experiencing this from the position of being the leader of a space, the host of a space, or being someone who is inside of a space, and being oftentimes maybe, I don't know if it's often or not, but you may be the black sheep. You may experience that you're singled out as the person that is like deluded or unconscious or whatever. You're like the fucked up one. And then you have this feelings like, I think I'm seeing something in this person that they're not willing to own. And you may very well be right. But the culture doesn't allow for that. because it's a guru, it's a cult. And you know you're in a cult if the culture doesn't allow for that. And I mean, it's, again, these are such nuanced themes and dynamics, because from a place of leadership, you can't spend all of your time self-analyzing and sharing your wounds and stuff like that. But if there's no ability from the place of leadership to expose, like, yeah, I still struggle with this, like it's fucking me up right now, then you're probably with somebody who's very wounded and not safe to be around, because it's not in the human realm to be like that. We're too fucked up as humans. So from a place of offering work, I think there's an inner signal mechanism that you need to really install, and it should fire when you start feeling obsession run inside of you. It's like there's a sense of fire, a sense of urgency. Some teachers, when a student is onto them or somebody else onto them, completely drop everything and become obsessively focused on like destroying them. You're so deluded, you're fucked up, and now I'm going to create this whole teaching that I'm going to give to 1,000 adoring followers that reasserts my inner stability that has been taken away from me by the fact that somebody is getting close. So I will now enter into that power game, that obsession, saying, I need to do this. I need to neutralize this threat against my kingdom. It has a tendency of being fiery on the inside. It has a tendency of being chaotic. And certainly its flavor is always dysregulation. You can't let it go. You can't go to bed and sleep peacefully without addressing it. There's just this fear. It's like somebody's about to expose me. Somebody's about to expose me. And the reason why that is running inside of me, fortunately, it isn't anymore in me. But the reason it is because I'm split. I have a teacher persona that is completely split from the reality of my own innocence. And that's where the obsession comes in. That's where the demon comes in. And the reason why I even wanted to speak about this was, well, it is there are multiple reasons, but I just had this insight in the kitchen. I was sharing it with Michelle the other day, that the energy source that used to give me so much energy for doing my work, my business, was gone. And that energy source had two purposes. One was to make me feel meaningful and thus like I was needed and loved and belonging, because then I wouldn't be abandoned. The other one was to save the world, because that would also have a similar reassuring impact on my innocence. And then it's like, wow, all of the energy to do any of that is gone. And this is one of the challenges with doing this work, is that it could be that all of the motivation, all of the energy to have built a business empire came from this place of not wanting your innocence to be exposed. And then somehow you heal it. And now that motivation is gone. And that was what I felt. I'm like, what do I do now? You know, now the energy needs to come from something else, and obviously that something else is service. And this has been a gradual process for me. To some extent, this is why I shut down Reclaim Unitron, because there was some sense that the motivation to run it was not entirely clean, even though the results were amazing. It's not clean enough. And so for a couple of years now, I've been kind of wondering and finding my way. And it was in becoming a dad that all of these things were healed inside of me. Because, the love I have for my son is profound. And the love that he has for me is profound. And with all of that love flowing, my inner child was good. He felt safe. He felt loved. No reason to make other people love and adore me. I don't need followers, not a single one. I'm doing great. I'm doing great. And so I think ultimately we need to check. Am I genuinely building a business from an intention to serve? Or am I doing this in order to prove that I'm good enough, that I'm lovable? And if that's the case, will I build it big from that intention and eventually end up with a trauma that cannot be healed? Because my whole life, professional life, financial life, family life even, because it's contingent on the other two, hinges on this trauma staying in place. Because the moment I heal it, the whole fucking empire can collapse. And that's something that we really, really, really need to talk more about. Because I do believe this is the default in the personal development industry. And it shouldn't be. I mean, we've had personal development, all of these techniques and schools and tantra and ayahuasca and all this. And look at us. We're not doing great, to say the least. We're doing really, really badly. Like, we're actually fucked up. And I do think there's hope. But we need to do better. And I think it comes, or it has to start with us tearing down empires built on trauma and being happy with whatever we can build from a place of purity. And it may just be because of the beast system and its design that the amount of people that are interested in working with you when you're healed will not be as many, because the world wants to be deceived and they love drama and chaos and someone to blame and someone to surrender to with no responsibility. But I think it's a chance we have to take for our soul and for the future of our children. So yeah, it was a bit of a heavy one today. I do hope that you got something out of this. Feel free to share on YouTube, on Facebook. I may return to this later, but I just felt that this was important at this point. And if you're somebody who runs a business and you have flavors of obsession, you may need an exorcism. So good luck. Have a great day. And I'll see you around. Bye for now. Hey, actually, one thing before I go. You guys out there who want to engage with work that isn't in any danger of being contaminated with this kind of dark contract or anything like that, but it's just honest, masculine, let's get fucking on with it kind of work, we're starting Grit. on Monday. Grit is a month of just becoming the man that your people and your family needs you to be. It's about commitment to clarity, courage, connection, and creation. There are many really committed and men on this round who are we're ready to fight, to compete, to beat you, because it's a competitive training where you get scores for meditation and prayer and working out and these things. So we start on Monday, and I would love for you to join groundandglory.com/grit. Have a great day. Bye-bye.